transport and what different forms of transport, planes, trains, and automobiles might mean. So the funny thing about this whole subject is the first thing to think about when you're thinking about transport is not actually to think about the thing itself at all, because every form of transport is always in an environment. If you are in a car is on the ground. Car runs on the ground. If you're in an aeroplane flies through the air. And if you're in a boat's always got to do with water. So the first thing to think about really is like, well, what do each of those mediums in which it travels mean, right? So just briefly, we know from Genesis that God says, we're made from the dust of the earth, right? That's what God formed us from. So when we talk about anything that's in touch with the ground or earth or mud, it's often to do with humanity and human things. So whenever it's a car, it's a truck, it's a bus, it's a train, they're all earthbound. So they're often talking about things which are quite practical and to do with action and activity, human activity, because they're on the ground. Can they be spiritual things like churches and fellowships and groups? Yes, of course they can. But often in the practical sense of those things. Now, aeroplanes start on the ground, but they're designed to fly in the air. So the air is often when we're talking about like real spiritual things. As you go up through the air in a sort of spiritual geography, Paul talks about going up to the third heaven. It's like, and in the imagination, the heavens are kind of out in, well, the heaven and the heavens. We talk about the stars being heavens. So in our imagination, the heavens are where God is, and the air is what we go up through to get to God's throne room. I'm not going to get into too much theology about it, but it's a spiritual thing. So it's moving in the spirit, it's prophetic things. When you're talking about aeroplanes, they're primarily things that to do with the spirit. Can they also be churches and fellowships? Yes, but more in the prophetic sense usually, And the last one, water. Well, now what's water? When you think about water, it's interesting to think about it in two ways. One is water that flows from a source. So that would kind of streams and rivers, because Ezekiel's vision of God's throne is a river of water flowing from his throne. Christ talks about rivers of living water will well up from inside of you. And that's talking about the Holy Spirit. And you can often tell what's happening in a river by how wide it is, how deep it is, how fast it's flowing, right? When you're talking about larger bodies of water, then that's often spirit in the larger sense, because those bodies of water rest on humanity. So as do actually streams and rivers. So it's talking about the spirit, like a big lake might refer to the spirit of a region, and the spiritual thing about a region. An ocean is a spiritual things which touch all nations. Like you think about the Pacific Ocean. I mean, it's like Japan, China, America, New Zealand, Australia. They all sort of touch the Pacific Ocean. So that gives you some clue as to what the meaning of your dream element might be.